On the evening of October 4th, 1992, as the sun set over Amsterdam, a man made his way home after a long day at work. The city was settling into the quiet of the night when the distant sound of an aircraft grew louder. Something about it was different. It was heavier, closer, and more urgent than usual. Looking up, the man spotted a Boeing 747 in clear distress, struggling to stay in the air. This is the story of a plane that should never have taken off. This is the story of El Al Flight 1862. Earlier that day, the aircraft, a Boeing 747-200 cargo plane operated by El Al, had departed from John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York. It was scheduled to land at Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, but first it had a planned stop in Amsterdam at Schiphol Airport. The layover was for a crew change and cargo processing. Before takeoff, the aircraft was already a cause for concern. Built in 1979, it was due for a major maintenance check after this flight. In New York, U.S. aviation authorities hesitated to clear it for departure, citing safety concerns. A major issue was that El Al had failed to maintain the aircraft according to Boeing's maintenance guidelines. As a result, tiny cracks in the fuse pins holding the engines went undetected. These flaws would soon lead to catastrophe. The flight to Amsterdam appeared normal at first. The aircraft landed at Schiphol Airport at 2:40 p.m. as scheduled. However, during the transatlantic crossing, the crew had reported various technical problems, including fluctuations in the autopilot speed control, malfunctions in the shortwave radio, and irregular voltage readings from generator number 3. Maintenance crews at Schiphol performed standard checks and temporarily resolved these issues, clearing the aircraft for its next leg. The plane was refueled and the cargo, which included flowers, perfume and video recorders, was processed. However, it was later revealed that the cargo had not been physically inspected before loading. After a delay, the flight, initially scheduled to leave at 5:30 p.m., was rescheduled for 6:20 p.m. The flight crew prepared for departure. Captain Yitzhak Fuchs, 59, had over 25,000 flight hours and a history as a fighter jet pilot for the Israeli Air Force. First Officer Arnan Ohad, 32, had nearly 4,300 flight hours with over 600 on the Boeing 747. Flight engineer Gadi Shoshan, 61, was the most experienced, boasting over 26,000 flight hours. Also on board was Anat Solomon, a 23-year-old El Al employee who was traveling back to Tel Aviv to reunite with her fiancé. The flight, now rescheduled, finally prepared for takeoff. Little did they know this journey would not go as planned. As the engines roared to life and the plane began its ascent, an unexpected turn of events was about to unfold, changing the course of their lives forever. At 6:04 p.m., clearance for pushback was received. As the aircraft taxied, the engines roared to life. The first officer was the designated pilot for this leg, while the captain handled communications and monitoring. Amsterdam's autumn weather was unusually calm, with clear skies and light winds. At 6:21 p.m., despite a 52-minute delay, Flight 1862 took off. It climbed eastward, following the designated Pampa departure route. Everything seemed routine. Then, disaster struck. A loud explosion echoed through the cockpit as the aircraft suddenly banked to the right. Something had gone terribly wrong. Below, near a lake east of Amsterdam, witnesses saw two massive objects plummeting toward the water. A few moments later, they heard two heavy splashes. Looking up, they saw the aircraft still flying, but clearly in distress. What had just happened? The Boeing 747 had lost 2 of its 4 engines. Each engine was attached to the wing by 4 critical components called fuse pins. These 14-centimeter-long safety pins were designed to break under extreme stress to prevent further damage to the wing. However, due to metal fatigue, one of the pins on engine number 3 had developed a tiny crack, only 4 millimeters long. This defect went unnoticed during inspections. When the pin finally snapped under the immense force of takeoff, The sudden load shift was too much for the remaining 3 pins, which also failed in quick succession. The detachment was violent. As engine number 3 tore away from the wing, it struck engine number 4, shearing it off completely. This left the aircraft with only 2 engines, both on the left wing, and severe damage to its hydraulic and flap systems. Controlling the aircraft became significantly harder. Captain Fuchs fought to keep the aircraft stable as fuel gushed from the damaged wing. He immediately contacted air traffic control, reporting engine failure. However, controllers assumed that the engines had merely shut down, not that they had fallen off entirely. Even the crew likely didn't realize the full extent of the damage, as the cockpit's instruments only showed a loss of thrust rather than physical detachment. The position of the engines also made it nearly impossible for them to visually confirm what had happened. Amidst the chaos, the first officer requested an emergency landing. Air traffic control initially suggested runway 06, but the captain opted for runway 27, the longest and closest option. However, this meant landing with a strong tailwind, making the approach even riskier. As the aircraft attempted to return, it had to circle Amsterdam to lose altitude. The crew tried to slow down by extending the flaps, but only the left wing flaps deployed. The right wing, severely damaged, had lost its flaps entirely. This created a dangerous imbalance, making it even harder to control the aircraft. At 6:35 p.m., just minutes after declaring an emergency, Flight 1862 lost control. The aircraft, unable to maintain stability, rolled sharply to the right and plunged almost vertically into 2 apartment buildings in the Bijlmermeer district of Amsterdam. The impact triggered a massive explosion, instantly destroying over 100 apartments and trapping many residents inside. The aftermath was horrific. The crash site was densely populated with many undocumented migrants among the residents. Survivors recalled hearing screams for help as fire engulfed the building. Some desperate individuals jumped from upper floors in a futile attempt to escape. Amidst the chaos, a local hero, Willem Sijbrandich, better known as Parser, ran into the burning wreckage to save a 10-year-old boy, becoming a symbol of bravery. The tragedy had far-reaching consequences. In the years following the disaster, survivors reported unexplained health problems, including respiratory issues and chronic fatigue. Investigations later revealed that the aircraft's tail section contained depleted uranium, which had vaporized upon impact. Although experts argued that the levels of exposure were too low to cause serious harm, many residents remained unconvinced. Further controversy arose when it was revealed that the cargo manifest included military materials. This raised suspicions that the official records had been altered. Additionally, the cockpit voice recorder was never recovered, leaving a critical gap in the investigation. Some eyewitnesses reported seeing individuals in white suits at the crash site, fueling theories of a government cover-up. However, official inquiries found no conclusive evidence to support these claims. Ultimately, the Dutch Safety Board concluded that the crash was inevitable given the extent of the aircraft's structural damage. Officially, 43 people lost their lives, including the flight crew and Anat Solomon. The tragedy left a lasting mark on Amsterdam, with many questions still unanswered about what truly happened to Flight 1862.